Hello, everyone. Welcome to our little virtual event space. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Allie. If you're local, you might recognize me from our LFP location. And I'm so excited to be introducing Nesbo and Harlan Coben here to discuss Nesbo's new thriller, The Kingdom. Before I pass you off to them, I just want to talk really quickly. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and for buying the book. Your guys' support really is what keeps this place going, and we really appreciate you buying books. We love so much what we do, and if you also love what we do, come on in. Our doors are still currently open, or if you're not local, we do ship. Shipping is $3.50, and you get to support USPS too, so it's an added bonus. We do have signed book plates for The Kingdom while supplies last. So if you're hoping for a signed plate, hop over to the website, which I will absolutely link in the comments. And while you're over on the website, I definitely recommend checking out some of our other upcoming events or sign up for our newsletter. It's a weekly, one email a week, and it just keeps everyone updated on who's coming through. Great new books that are coming out, and of course there's the blog over there if you're looking for your new favorite book, and of course always follow us on all of our social media. We are at Third Place Books on pretty much everything, and that'll just be our fastest, quickest updates and some recommendations. So we are going to be here for about an hour. Towards the end, we're going to take questions. So if you do have questions, and we very much hope that you do, go ahead and pop those up in the Q&A box up in the top rack. There's a chat box. And, we love to when you shout out over there. And then there's also a Q&A box, and that's where the questions will be easiest for us to find. And yeah, so we'll get through about as many as we can. So without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce two internationally best-selling authors, each of whom have sold millions of copies of wonderful books, Harlan Coben and Nesbo. So Harlan Coben's books are published in 44 languages around the globe and have been #1 bestsellers in more than a dozen countries. His most recent book this is 32nd in Times Best. He is also the creator and executive producer of many television shows, including the recently.
Is she freezing on you too, Joe?
Yeah.
You? Okay.
Songwriter, economist, and #1 New York Times best-selling author. Among his many awards, he's won the Raymond Chandler Award for Lifetime Achievement, and his books have been translated into 50 languages. His newest book, The Kingdom, is a standalone thriller about greed, ambition, and the limits of family loyalty between two brothers with dangerous secrets. So thank you both so much for being here. And I leave all of this audience in your capable hands. And I'll be in the chat if you need anything.
Well, great. Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm Harlan. That's Yo, so you know who's who. Just want to first of all also give a shout out to Third Place Books, which is one of the great bookstores anywhere in the country. I've visited many times. I think I was there on last book tour. And I know Yo and I both encourage you to give them as much business as possible. They make your town better. They improve your property values. If they leave, you're going to get another Gap store or something terrible like that. So please, they provide so many opportunities, not for you to meet authors and to hang. And who doesn't love a bookstore, especially one as good as Third Place Books? And there are several of them. But so please, if you can, I would really ask you to support them with not just our books, but any books that you wish to buy. How you doing today, Yo? How's everything going?
I'm pretty good. Thank you. I know it's daytime for you here. It's getting quite late. So I'll just give you a short glimpse of the view. I don't know if you can see anything, but as you can see, it's pitch dark outside. Yeah.
Is this your workspace, Yo? Is this where you?
Yeah. Well, it has become my workspace. I have, if you can see here, I have a big and beautiful desk over there.
Yeah, it's great.
I have my music. I have my coffee machine here. I have everything. And up until recently, this was the only place where I simply cannot write. It was so I would go to a local coffee shop where I would, you know, try to wrestle in at my favorite table and look at the people sitting there until they left, and then was where I would work for, well, for 8 or 9 years, and then they closed, and then we had the COVID-19, of course, and so I had to retreat back to my big desk here. So this is where I'm working right now.
Do you always go to the same coffee shop to
Yeah,
work?
it used to be. I tried some other coffee shops, but it simply it didn't have the same vibe, so I couldn't settle anywhere else. And yeah, they reopened that coffee shop now, um, for some reason, and now it's a horrible place. It's impossible to work there. It's not at all the same. All the all the regulars they have left, and it's just a slick, awful place. But still, they advertise for the place using my name, so that this is where I sit and write my novels. Well, it's not. It used to be, yeah, but not this place.
And for those who don't know, Yo is in Oslo, Norway. So maybe that was obvious, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knew. But that's interesting because I don't work well in my house either, and that's something I've had to get used to. Why do you think that is? Why do you like to go out to someplace other than your home? Yeah, this nice home office you just showed us, but why have you spent most of your years going someplace else?
I You know what, Holland? I think it's simply because if I go to a coffee shop, there's nothing else to do but write. When you're at home, I don't know how it is with you, but you will, at days when you don't feel that inspired, you will always find other things that are suddenly very important to do. Like suddenly it's important to change the sheets on the bed, or do the dishes or something like that. I make a lot of phone calls, yeah. So I go to a coffee shop, and I had my breakfast there, and I had a quick chat with the regulars, and then got to work. And when I left, it felt like leaving the office, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same way. Like if I'm home, I'll paint the house before I want to start writing some days.
Exactly.
Also, I have 4 children who are now grown, and my youngest is a freshman or a sophomore in college. But when they were home, of course, when the 4 kids were around, it made it that much harder to write. The other thing, let me ask you, do you also think that the white noise effect sometimes makes you concentrate better, or is that not part of it for you?
No, I totally agree. It's having that, and also that you can have a break for 10 seconds and just look at people.
Yeah.
Do a little people watching every half an hour or something, and then you can get back to work. But definitely, yes, white noise is good. I also bring headphones, so I listen to music just to keep the noise out sometimes. But I can also work with just people talking around me. And I don't know what your favorite place is, but for me, it's airports.
But airports, well, why is
Yep.
that?
They have good coffee, and there's a constant changeover of people, so there's always new people to look at, and they 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 don't get so what should I say, uncomfortable. They do that in the coffee shop. When I look at them for the third or fourth time, there's more changeover in the airport. So yeah, and no, but the main reason I think is I like the feeling of doing 2 things at the same time. I'm actually waiting for a plane,
Right.
probably, and writing. So
Yeah, and also there's absolutely nothing else to do in an airport. That helps, don't you think? There's absolutely, like you say, I remember when I was first starting out and I would go to coffee shops, none of them had the internet, and I loved that. So you didn't have the temptation to go online. Now, of course, there's phones and things like that, but I didn't even have the temptation. I couldn't go online. And I know John Grisham has a laptop he writes on that doesn't get the internet at all.
Right.
Because it's a curse, don't you think? The internet's a little bit of a curse for
writers? Well, it was exactly in that coffee shop. They didn't have internet, which was good. But actually, I don't connect to internet when I write. And when I do, it's for research. So actually, I'm quite disciplined when I'm in the coffee shop. It's when I'm at home, then it's a problem. Then I'll be on the internet and all over the place.
So take us through that day. You're waking up. What time do you get to the coffee shop? What time? How long do you stay? What do you do?
Yeah, it's normally I wake up at depending on when I went to bed, but normally around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then I get up. I stay in bed because sometimes I get good ideas in bed. I mean, that is like one of the perks of being a writer is that you can stay in bed and call it working. So, and then I'll right now for the last half a year because it's more difficult to go to coffee shops because of COVID. I make myself some breakfast and I have a coffee, and then I get down to writing quite quickly. I find that when I started writing, then I would be writing at night time. I thought I did my best work in the 3 o'clock in the morning, which when I checked later is probably not the case. But anyway, now I'm the opposite. Now I get up at, like I said, 9 o'clock. At 9:30, I'll be at the laptop writing, and then I write for a couple of hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then I go. Normally, I go rock climbing with friends, either indoor or outdoor. I do that 4 or 5 times a week.
Right, rock climb 4 or 5 times a week. You do rock climbing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I'll maybe after that I'll have dinner with my daughter, and after that I may do some more work. If it's a busy day, I'll have an interview like this, or if it's a really busy day, I'll have a gig with my band or my bass player here in Oslo. So it's the perfect end of the day actually to have a small gig in a club with my bass player. We go there and we play for like an hour or something, and it's nice to, as a writer, it's nice to get some applause at the end of the day, I think.
But to say that's not normally our work. So obviously people know you're a huge music guy. Is there something do you listen to something in particular for certain scenes? Do you listen to something, hard rockish for certain scenes, classical for other scenes, or how does it work with you in music in terms of writing, or does it not work?
I have a playlist that is like all over the place, which is all from Metallica to Miles Davis, and of course Bruce Springsteen, who is I guess your neighbor right now where you are sitting.
Yeah, and my idol, right?
Yeah. And so and I don't find that music particularly influenced my writing. I think I can write, tender love scenes with Metallica on, or brutal scenes with Miles Davis playing from Kind of Blue.
That's interesting. Okay, so
how about you? Do you listen to music?
I sometimes, like you said, it doesn't really have much effect. It's not like I'm writing corny scenes to melodramatic music or or any of that sort of thing. It's just whatever happens to be playing. Some days I don't, it doesn't bother me. Some days it does. I do like white noise like you. I think it makes me focus more. If somebody's talking around me, not my family, then I can't do it. But if I'm in a coffee shop, and we can eavesdrop, it's part of our job, right? We're allowed to. So if we're sitting near you, we're going to eavesdrop and maybe get not necessarily ideas, but texture and content and a little bit of dialogue and a little bit of how somebody speaks, all of those sort of things. And of course, I wonder how you feel about this. How have you dealt with COVID? In other words, we're writers, so we are socially isolated people to begin with.
Exactly.
Do you think it's been a little bit easier on you than maybe the general public?
Definitely. No, I mean, I'm privileged in that respect that life goes on. It's business as usual, more or less. And actually, to some extent, I talked to a colleague of mine. He's a stand-up comedian, but he's slightly introvert, like myself. And he said, what's not to like about the lockdown? You have no social obligations. You can get away with not seeing people for 2 weeks at a time. It's so for him, and well, partly for me too, it's not that bad. What is bad, of course, is beside the virus itself and people getting ill, it's to see friends who struggle, who knew economically and also to a certain extent socially. I mean, I have lots of friends with big families, and they well, in March, April, they admitted that they got crazy. Marriage is on the brink of breakdown and stuff like that. But yeah, so it'll probably, this whole situation will probably in some way end up on paper. It's not like I'm going to address this year and this situation, but things have changed. I mean, it's like when I meet people that I normally would hug or that I would get close to, now automatically I keep a distance, and I don't know if that is going to be only physical or if it's going to be a sort of a mental distance there, that you subconsciously people are going to become something something you should be really careful with. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think things have changed. I was sort of midway through a book when COVID started, and I just moved the book. I always have it in the present day, but I just moved it to 2019. So for now, I wouldn't have to deal with it. And one of the reasons, I don't know how you feel, is I don't know what it's going to be tomorrow, nonetheless, what it will be in March of this year or May of this year. No one really knows what sort of lockdown, what sort of situation we're going to be in. So unless you're making the book specifically October of 2020, it's going to be very difficult to kind of try to predict where we're going with this. I'm talking about our fiction, and then our reality, something different. What do you think? I mean, are you putting COVID in the books, or are you right now you're writing, or are you leaving it out?
I mean, no, I mean, this is like when the mobile phones entered, the universe of writers. They had to, and especially, I guess, for crime writers, that police investigation and who's done it. Then then it's before and after the mobile phone. And I guess it's going to be before and after COVID also. I just watched the Danish director Susanne Bier and her The Undoing. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
I haven't seen it yet, but it just started to play here. I think we've had about 2 or 3 episodes that played here on each.
Yeah, it's really good so far. But I guess it's supposed to be set in the present, but people hug. people, it's you can see that this is before COVID, and you react to that. So it's a sort of a timestamp, this virus. So yes, it's definitely going to influence the writing and how we set things in time. Then again, if there's a vaccine and we'll get rid of this in March, April, or next summer, then maybe I mean we forget so easily. So
Really?
it's also going to be interesting to see how will we act in 2-3 years time.
There is a lot of people, I don't know if you're the same thing here, and we'll get off COVID in a second, but there's almost also around me anyway, like a denial, not just the mask wearing or the not mask wearing, denying and all that stuff, but there is sort of like people will still, who are, on the same side in all different ways, will still like just naturally want to come up and be closer or shake the hand. And it's kind of like, whoa, just, we don't need to do that right now. We can stay 6 feet apart and it's not really going to bother either one of us too much. And it's just, it's interesting to see the different reactions. We have, there's a lot of it where I'm in the New York, New Jersey area. And so there's been a lot of it here and a lot of people I know have had it. So yeah,
Really?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
But not me. I'm good. By the way, folks, again, there's a Q&A thing down at the bottom. If you want to type in some questions that you want me to ask you or you want us to talk about, please feel free to do that and we'll try to get to them. We haven't even started discussing at all the kingdom, but this is how you're actually this is what we do. Last time I saw you, we were in Harrogate in the UK at a wonderful crime festival. And we never really talk about specifically our books. In fact, I think we're often embarrassed. We just talk like this kind of a thing. And I thought that would be more interesting to start off with. But just for those who don't know, of course, The Kingdom came out today. It is not Harry Huli. Did I pronounce it right? Huli?
Well, yeah, it's actually quite close to the Norwegian pronunciation. When I go abroad, I just say Harry Hole.
Oh, you do say Harry Hole. Okay, I didn't know. It's pronounced. I know it's not pronounced Hole. It took me like 2 books to get into that when I was trying to read it. Right. We all know him as Harry Hole, but it's actually pronounced Hule or something like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Pardon my Norwegian pronunciation.
No, that's not bad.
This is your first, right? This is your first not Harry book.
No, it's not. It's no, actually, it's gone a little, I guess, under the radar. But I had I had several. I had Headhunters, which was my first standalone. Then I had The Sun, which is also a standalone, which is hopefully going to be a TV series on HBO with a lot of talented people. So this is my 4th standalone, actually. I also wrote Macbeth, which was a sort of a contribution to the series of books in connection with the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. So I've written a series of children's books. So I know for some of my readers it's a surprise when that is not a Harry Hole book, because that's what most people know me for. But for me, it's nothing unusual that it's not a Harry book. It's more or less over the last years that every second book has been a Harry book, and then a standalone or another series.
So, all right. So we're in rural Norway, mountain area of rural Norway. And this is really, I mean, you mentioned Macbeth, but there is something kind of Shakespearean, I think, about this story of 2 brothers. Would you say? I'm trying to sum up, and I don't want to give anything away, but Roy and Carl are 2 brothers, one who stayed behind, one who went off and made his fortune, and now is returning. How do you want to set this book up quickly for us? I know it's always a terrible question, but why don't you give them
it is.
I always hate it too, but give them a little taste of. I will just tell you, I'm not going to tell you about the plot much because we both don't like that. We both would rather you just read it. And if you're here, you're already a fan of yours. But if you want to give them a line or two about it, if not, I'll let you off the hook. But
no, but I will. It's two brothers, Roy and Carl. They grew up together in this small village in the mountains on a very small farm, and their parents died when they were in their teens in a car accident very close to the farm, which well, it's what do you call it, a cliff going down there, and the car is still down there. And anyway, Carl left the village when he had finished high school. He had broken up with his girlfriend, and so he went to the United States to study business administration. And while Roy, the older brother, he stayed in the village running the local gas station. And so after 15 years, and this is where the story starts, Carl is coming back to the village. The village is in trouble because the main road is going to go outside the village, which is an economical disaster for the village. But Carl is coming back uh, with his wife. They just married. She's from Barbados, and they met in Canada. And so he is coming back with this project. They are going to build a luxurious spa hotel in this village, and he wants everybody in this small village to take part in the project, to be investors, so they can share the risk for this big project. And he's very enthusiastic, and he's also more kind of a salesperson, very extrovert. While Roy, who's running the gas station, he's more the serious introvert, loner. And so they meet again. Um, and as we see Carl trying to sell this project to the inhabitants, there's also an investigation. The local sheriff, who is the son of the former sheriff who mysteriously disappeared around 15 years ago. And there's some unsolved questions about how the two brothers' parents died in that car accident.
that's good. That was good. It's a lot of family secrets, a lot of the past coming sort of back to rising up and kind of haunting them. So I'm not going to ask you where you got your ideas necessarily, but what was the seed? Okay, you're a blank slate. What was
Yeah.
the first thing that you thought of? You wanted to write about brothers. You wanted to write about, you had the idea of the spa on the mountain. What was the first seed that started the kingdom for you?
Brothers and family.
Brothers and family.
It was. I've been in my previous work. I've been returning to the theme of father son, but here it was brothers, which of course has to do with me growing up with two brothers, and one brother was 1 year younger than me. He passed away 7 years ago from cancer, but we were very close. We like Roy and Carl in this story. When we grew up, we would share a room and sleep in a bunk bed. We would play soccer for the same soccer team, and then we moved away from each other, me to study, and he kept on playing soccer. And then we both moved to Oslo, where we formed the band in which he played until he passed away from cancer. And so it was I guess it was a matter of time before I had to write about brothers, just based on that loyalty, that I mean the strong emotional bonds, the love of course, but also loyalty. The fact that your brother is your brother. I mean, he ain't heavy, as the song goes. Uh, and I guess um, you know, as they say that every writer write about themselves, and for a long time I didn't quite agree with that. It wasn't until I started getting translated and I started traveling abroad and would be interviewed about books that I'd written like 5 or 6 years ago, because the translation takes so much time. And when I was interviewed about those novels, that was when I realized that I was writing about Harry, um, but I was actually writing about my own life, what was going on in my own life at that time. But it wasn't until 5 6 years later I realized that. And so I sort of given up the idea of writing stuff that doesn't have anything to do with me or my life. I realized that that is where I get my material from. And so in this book, um, I was not in denial. I realized that, okay, I'm probably writing about myself and my brother here, not the actual events, what happens in the book, of course, but emotionally, it's me and my brother.
That's interesting. That whole idea, we sort of sometimes scoff at the idea of you're writing your own life or write what you know and all that. And as you get a little older, you realize you're probably doing it subconsciously anyway. You'll read a passage uh, long afterwards and go, oh wait, that actually did happen to me in some way. That wasn't something I just completely made up. We are products of our experience. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's also, it's kind of thing with age that you mentioned before, where I also used to write better at night when I was younger. And now as I get older, it's more in the morning. I don't know if that's as a product of age or if that's a product of something else, but neither one of us are new at this. So it's sort of interesting that we both have that same experience. I'm gonna start. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I've been wondering. I think that maybe it's when you start writing, you are a bit more unsure of yourself. So I think that if you, I remember coming home from being out with friends to a bar or something, and be slightly drunk, and I would sit down with a typewriter and either write on a novel or write a song, and I thinking this is great. Then you get up in the morning and you look at it, and it's garbage. It's and I think that it may have to do with that you are less critical when you're half asleep at night or a bit drunk, and so you feel better about your writing. But I think that when you get more experienced, you prefer to have a sharp critical sense, and work with that, and you you're not worried if you struggle, because you know that it's probably when you struggle, that is probably when you're doing your best work.
I agree, but I also would add that sometimes the opposite happens, where you write something you're sure is crap. You get it down anyway, because that's part of what we're supposed to do. Just get it down for now. You could always fix it later. And then you wake up the next morning and it's not quite as bad as you thought. Do you ever have that? Or does it only work one way?
Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that for me. If I think it's bad, it's really bad.
Yeah. There's some days, yeah. Well, I mean, one of the keys of writing, I always think, and I don't know if you agree, is to force yourself to get it down. You have to turn off that voice in your head that says you suck, because that voice is there every day, all the time, no matter how many millions of copies you've sold, right? There's always that voice that says you suck. And if you listen to it, you're not going to get anything down.
No, that's true. But I find that when I feel like I'm struggling, when I feel that this is hard, and when I look at it later, more often than not, I think that is where I find some of my best work. That is when it may even, if I read it later, I sort of can't believe that I struggle here, because it seemed fluent. and it looks easy. And I think that's simply because I will work really hard at it.
Yeah, so it's true. I mean, the writer, if you ever have a writer, I always say only bad writers think they're good. The rest of us, you know, we're always struggling and hating ourselves. But that's really interesting that I feel that quite frequently too, where I'll read back a part and I'll go, man, that was so hard to write. But I'm looking at it now, I'm like, why? It just sort of, there's no other way you could have gone with that. Why were you struggling so hard with that part? I guess making it look easy is like is the sports analogy that people would use.
Yeah.
All right, let me get to some of your questions because we have some time here. Let's see. Monica's asking you, Yo, does anything get lost in translation between Norwegian and English? Do you still write in Norwegian and translate?
Yeah, I definitely write in Norwegian. I mean, I can write in English. Norwegian is my first language, and it all has to do with a feeling for the language, and which is especially important when it comes to humor. I think it's and that is also what usually gets lost in translation. It's the humor. Then again, I think that my translators, Don Bartlett with my previous work, they've been doing a terrific job. It's not like I read all my translations, but I hear from other people that I trust that the translations are actually very good. So if you don't like my novels, it's not because of the translators. And it's when you write in a small language like Norwegian, the English translation is really important because when you get published in, let's say, South Korea or the Philippines, they will not translate from Norwegian. You won't find a translator who can translate to Korean. You then they use the English translation. But yes, to answer your question, things will get lost in translation. That's inevitable.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. If you don't like the book, I blame the translator. And if you like it in that foreign language, then I say the translator must have done a pretty decent job. I throw everybody else under the bus, so I'm not going to any of the blame. Let's see. Rachel's asking, hello to both of us. She was wondering, how easy is it to find it to adapt your own books for TV? Do you have any thoughts on adaptation?
I think I haven't had any of my scripts filmed. I've written for the stage, but and I have written for TV. Maybe it'll materialize in a year or two. I don't know, but so it's. I think, let me put it this way. I think it's quite easy, but I don't know if it's any good.
Yeah, or if they'll recognize that it's any good. It's a very, the whole adaptation business and getting things on TV and movies it's very strange and perilous, and we're dealing with a lot of executives who don't necessarily know what storytelling is and things like that. It's a hard, frustrating process, I would say. Let's see, Lynn.
Yeah, but how about you, Harlan? You have more experience in this.
Well, now it took a long time. I mean, I had a lot of frustrations along the way. I was lucky to have a really terrific French film made of Tell No One many years ago. Well, many years ago, 15 years ago, I guess now, by Guillaume Canet, which helped pave the way. And I've been very lucky that there's not an adaptation that I don't like. I mean, some are better than others. And now with the current deal that I have with Netflix, I get to be involved as much or as little as I want to be with them in various languages. I like making them overseas more. I think that they give you kind of freedom that Hollywood maybe does not. But it's this. It didn't come overnight. And for a long time, I just let people. I just option them off, which is smart. If you're a novelist, I do recommend you don't try to get too involved in the Hollywood process because it'll just eat you up alive.
Yeah.
once you have it a little more established, like Yo and I, for fun of it, frankly, I sort of said, well, I've done what I could in books. It might be fun now to try to do this sort of a thing. And I got more involved and it worked out, but a lot of it is luck and a lot of it is relying on things that are not necessarily the same as what the book world is, where you and I are writer, director, we write the script, we're the key grip, where the lights and sounds,
budget.
key grip is, we get to be all of that. And, Hollywood, or not just Hollywood, but adaptations in general, are a collaborative process. The comparison I use, and I don't know if you agree with this, like when we do well with a book, it's like we're a golfer or a tennis player. We won the US Open or Wimbledon or whatever else. But as a soccer player yourself, if we do well in a TV show, it's like you're captain of the soccer team. You're one of the key players on a soccer team. You're celebrating the World Cup together with a team, and they're very different, and they're both quite satisfying, frankly.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Yeah. All right, so Julie's asking you, since you create such vivid profiles of sociopathic killers, have you ever been contacted by a real killer, incarcerated or not? And what did you talk about if you did?
I have. I've been interviewing criminals as research, and but none of them are serial killers. One or two of them may have murdered somebody accidentally, or in a fight, but not. I haven't interviewed. Let me put it like this: cold-blooded killers.
So we just use our imagination sometimes. Easier in this day and age, I think, than in the past.
And also, I think that when you write stories, you don't necessarily write about the murderer, the serial killer. Those are often metaphors. They are like the shark in Jaws. They are not. They are there for a purpose, and the purpose is to show the humanity, the intelligence, the courage, the lack of courage of other characters.
It's how they react versus necessarily what I think. So, which leads sort of the next question that Jen here is asking. And that's besides asking what the ideas, I think we discussed. Do you spend time developing characters before you start the book? Do you meet them along the way and learn about them as you go along? There's some authors that you and I both know who will do 150-page profile biographies on the subject before they start the book, and then are ones who completely go by the seat of their pants and learn about them as they write. What camp are you in?
I think I'm. When I started writing, I would plan my novels and my stories in detail, because I like the idea of, when I started writing, chapter 1, I could tell my readers, come sit closer, because I have this great story to tell you, and I know exactly where we're going. I like the feeling that I had when I listened to my relatives when we would have Christmas holidays, and they would tell the old stories. That they didn't tell the story, they retold the story, and I like that feeling that I know my story really well, and I know exactly where we're going. And that goes for the characters also. But I also found that I would focus on the plot a lot, and environment, and doing research on the cities where the story was taking place, stuff like that. And I would use my gut feeling more with the characters. And what I found was that when I started writing about them, when they started, walking and talking, they would sometimes act a little different from what I had planned for them. It was something when they started talking, I realized that, okay, this character is not who I planned him or she to be, or it's more interesting if they are a little bit more like this. And then I would go back in and change the story. So what I'm doing nowadays is that I simply I don't write 150 pages on a character, but I do put in bits and pieces of dialogue. I find that as soon as they start talking, they take on a certain kind of personality that is very hard to plan.
Do you know the ending before you start?
Yeah, I do.
Always know the ending. All right, so you're more of an outliner on that outline, not outline. You would be more on the outline side of things than the person. I'm more that way too. I mean, I know the endings anyway. I kind of admire and am amazed by people who have the courage to start a book and don't know where it's going to end. To me, that's like getting in a car saying I'm going to go across the country, but I have no idea where. So I kind of admire it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that it's on one hand, I like to trust the storyteller. Um, I don't like if I get the feeling that I'm just that the storyteller is making it up as we go along. On the other hand, sometimes I can tell that the writer is writing the book like that, and it's just wonderful.
Right.
You get something that you don't get in the planned story. So I mean, whatever works.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask 10 writers how they do it, you'll get 11 different answers. So,
Mm.
it's I always say whatever's making you write. All right, we got a question here from Agnes says, you mentioned that you created Harry during a flight to Australia. What did your research on the reality of the police work look like while being on the road?
I probably what I did was since I wrote this was my first novel, The Bat, and I planned the book. I had 5 weeks in Australia. I was going there with a friend, looking at the country. He would have to go back to work after a couple of weeks, and I kept on traveling. And since I was traveling and I was in Australia, I couldn't do much research there. So I would write a story there in 5 weeks and then get back and then contact the police here in Norway and send it to them and ask them not for I didn't ask them how do they do the work. I asked them to write the text and tell me, where I was wrong, or if this was plausible, or and what was simply stupid.
Right. That's interesting. All right. Um, when you have an idea, I think I know the answer to this one, but I think it's still a good question. Nelson's asking here. When you have an idea, do you know right away if it's going to be a story for Harry or if it's going to be a standalone? How do you decide that?
I think that that's a very good question because sometimes I'm not sure. I don't, and I don't have like a strategy that now I'm going to publish a Harry novel. Now I'm going to publish a standalone novel. It's all about getting that idea that I know that okay, I love this idea. I have to write this story right away while I while I still feel the way I do about this idea. Um, and no, well, it's in this case, The Kingdom. It was about two brothers, and I know that they were going to be the main characters in the book, and that ruled out Harry. And I knew it was going to be in a small village because I I my parents comes from small villages, so I would spend all my summer holidays and Christmas holidays in these small villages, and I sort of like the atmosphere of everybody knowing each other and everybody, even if they didn't know your name, even people that you hadn't met before, when you met them, they knew that you knew that they knew all about your background, your family background, who your parents were, your grandparents, and your uncles and aunts, and that is kind of reassuring. I mean, you feel safe in a surrounding like that, but it's also kind of claustrophobic that you can't. I mean, growing up in a village like that, you can't sort of reinvent yourself or present yourself as someone new. even if you feel new, people won't let you. So you're stuck in your role in a way. And I wanted to write about that, and that meant it had to be a standalone because the themes were so different from what I've written previously.
I mean, I think it's a big part of the book is how well the townspeople know each other, and how, you know, comforting and not comforting as the book goes on that is or is not. All right, what else we got here? Vern is asking you, have you studied, incorporated Eastern philosophies and or spiritual ideals in your works after Harry's stories? Not sure. Interesting.
Yeah. Have I?
I don't know what to say. I'm just reading them here. All right, we'll move on here. So this is a question we both get probably a fair amount, but I'm always interested in hearing because we've been talking a little bit about this, but how much of Harry is you? You know, how much of it? That's what Andrea is asking.
Yeah. Okay. 73%. I'd say.
Mathematical equation, huh?
Yeah, it's no, but I think it's like we talked about earlier on, that, you know, to what extent are you conscious about how much you put of yourself in your stories about your life. And I think that having written about Harry for so many years, of course there's a certain part of me which is Harry. I think that okay, let me put it this way. I won't tell you which parts, but yes, it's or basic your basic values, your basic. I mean politically, when it comes to humor and to taste in popular culture. I guess I and Harry share a good deal.
I know the obvious answer is probably Roy, but are you closer to Roy or Carl?
Yeah, I'm closer to Roy.
Yeah, no, but certainly how we see each other, right? And then all of a sudden you start looking and you realize, well, maybe there's more Carl in me than I think as you start going along. One more, we'll do one last question, and then I'm going to thank Third Place Books and let Yo end this for us because we're just about time. But let me ask, let's see, Lynn is asking, let's see, Arthur's asking, should we expect a Harry Hole novel next year, Harry Hole novel next year? We'll speak the English.
No, right now I'm working on a collection, or actually two collections of short stories, one with crime stories and one with science fiction stories.
Wow.
And I'm also working on a book about sort of a personal story about rock climbing.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I'm going to, first of all, again, thank Third Place Books. Thank everybody. We have over 100 people that are on the line, and please, we urge you, I know I'm speaking for you when I say not just our books, but the more business you can give places like Third Place Books, they really do help your town. You're, you know, besides employing people, like I say, it's going to be like a Gap or an Old Navy if you don't keep it there. So bookstores are great. You wander through them, you know what these people do. I know that both of us visit Seattle to visit stores like Third Place Books. They improve your life in so many ways. So please contribute to them. And Yo, I will give you the last word. Go ahead, say whatever you need to say, and thanks very much.
I just want to say thank you so much for listening and watching. I had a great time. Thank you so much for doing this. If you're ever in Oslo and you need a moderator, I'll be there for you.
Thanks.
Thank you guys both so much for coming in, and thank you guys all for attending. Lots of great questions tonight. I love so much hearing where these books are coming from, especially with authors who have such huge catalogs. So this was a great conversation. Thank you guys both so much for coming out, and for all of you listening, thank you so much for being here. Definitely come in, say hi. We love it when people come in and talk about the events. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.
Take care,
Have
everybody.
a good night or
Thank
day.
you.
Take care.